Mom demands I give up my home for her and my brother because they need it more. I'm a 30-year-old male with a younger brother, 26, whose has honestly been the golden child to my mother. My dad, however, never shared her favoritism. My parents divorced when I was 15 after my mom cheated with a coworker, and she's always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic. Sadly, my younger brother has mirrored her personality, becoming her little sidekick. Growing up, my mom treated me like her personal assistant. She'd bark orders and expect instant compliance while my brother cheered her on. So when my parents divorced, I chose to live with my dad full-time, while my brother stayed with my mom. Over time, they both distanced themselves from my father unless they needed money while I grew closer to him. My dad was a hard-working businessman, and from the age of 16, he taught me his trade. I worked with him for over a decade, eventually becoming his business partner. Life was going well until tragedy struck 8 months ago. My dad, a lifelong smoker, developed health issues that compromised his immune system and passed away from COVID-19 at 59. For the first time in years, I saw my mom and brother during a socially distanced video call for my dad's funeral. He had requested cremation, so there was no casket. My brother appeared genuinely upset, but my mom looked indifferent, which wasn't surprising. The last time she saw my dad, she demanded more money from him and even threatened to sue. He simply laughed, knowing he'd paid alimony and child support for as long as the law required. Despite her constant complaints, my mom isn't struggling financially. She's held the same well-paying job for over 20 years, owns the family home outright, and earns extra income, renting out rooms on Airbnb. After the funeral, we had my dad's will read, knowing his smoking habit might eventually catch up to him. He'd prepared thoroughly and even joked about it in a recorded video. He left me almost everything: his business, his home, and most of his savings. My brother inherited a 2016 Toyota Camry and $5,000, while my mom received $1,000 and a few items she'd claimed during the divorce. I moved into the house my dad left me, and my girlfriend now lives with me. My brother, on the other hand, spent years working part-time online and relying on his girlfriend for support. She suffered a miscarriage a year ago, and I only found out after the funeral because we were barely in contact. Recently, their financial situation worsened. His girlfriend lost hours at her job, and my brother's part-time work wasn't enough to sustain them. Despite the struggles, they managed to get pregnant again, calling it their miracle baby. One evening, I heard an unexpected knock at my door. When I opened it, was shocked when both my mom and brother showed up unannounced. They walked right in without asking and made themselves at home in my living room. My girlfriend and I exchanged confused glances, and I asked what they were doing here. My brother was snooping around, opening doors and practically giving himself a tour of my place. Meanwhile, my mom plopped down on my couch, snapped her fingers, and demanded cold water. My girlfriend got it for her, and I asked again what their visit was about. My brother just ignored me, continuing his exploration of my house. Then I heard him yell from down the hall, "Mom, it's perfect." Yes, he still calls her mom. Finally, my mother spoke up and said, "I think it's time you fulfill your duty as a brother." I was completely lost. "What are you talking about?" I asked. She went on, "Now that your father is gone, this house should have gone to me as his only spouse. But you can fix this. You make enough money and could easily buy a new place. Your brother needs this house more since he's about to have a baby. But if you're set on staying, you could stay in one room and cover all the bills until you move out." At that point, my girlfriend and I exchanged glances. We had both read enough Reddit stories to know exactly where this was headed. We were mentally prepared, but I couldn't hold back anymore. I took a deep breath and said, "That's not how this works. You don't get to order me around, especially not in my own damn house. Yes, I make good money, but like Dad, I save it for when I really need it. Not that you care." My mom started snapping her fingers at me, just like she used to, and loudly said, "Stop. I am your mother, and you will do as I say. I brought you into this world, and I'm the only one in charge here. I'm God in this house, and when I say jump, you ask how high. This house is mine now, and your brother will live here. Consider this your eviction, but since I'm being gracious, I'll give you 2 weeks to pack and transfer the deed to me." In the back of my mind, I thought, This can't be real. But I grabbed my phone and started dialing. My mom immediately stood up and yelled, "What are you doing?" I replied, "I'm doing what I should have done as soon as this started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." She swiped at me and knocked my phone out of my hand. Then tried to stomp on it, but I grabbed it before she could. "That's it," I said. "If you don't leave, I'll force you out myself." She slapped me across the face, and I backhanded her twice as hard, knocking her down onto the couch. She held her face in shock, then screamed, "How dare you?" I went back to dialing my phone and told her, "If you don't leave, I'll have the police remove you by force." My brother ran in between us, arms outstretched, saying, "Just do the right thing for once, and be a good brother." I snapped, "Really? I'm the bad sibling. Last I checked, I've been working for a living since I was a teenager. I had to do all the chores while you sat around playing video games or hanging with your friends all day. You used to steal my hard-earned money to go out shopping. After you blew through your allowance, you're a complete mooch and a thief. So no, I don't owe you anything. Now both of you get out, or I'll make that last call." My brother started crying, saying, "Mommy, make him stop." My mom hugged him and kissed his cheek while glaring at me. Then she seemed to think of a clever idea and said, "You know, if you call the police, I could just tell them you hit me, and maybe I'll tell everyone. You were planning to do worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that would be good for you." I raised my hand and cut her off. "Stop, if you haven't noticed. My girlfriend has been recording this entire time. We've got proof of you assaulting me first, and admitting you'd lie to the police. That wouldn't look good for your job or your little Airbnb business, would it? If looks could kill, my mom would have nuked me on the spot. But instead, she deflated and started dragging my crying brother toward the door. He broke free for a moment, sat down on the porch steps, and threw a tantrum. I gave my mom a look and said, "See? This is what happens when you spoil her." She glared at me again, then tried to drag my brother off the steps. He latched onto the handrails, repeating, "You promised me." I couldn't help but laugh. "Never come back." She flipped me the bird and kept trying to drag him off the steps. It took a few minutes, but she finally managed to get him to leave by saying I was a cruel, heartless bastard who was going to hell. I laughed again and said, "There's also a special place in hell for liars and narcissists who manipulate others to get what they want." My mother clenched her fists and was about to respond when I held up my phone, showing her the recording, and said, "The clock's ticking. Mom, get off my property." My mother then walked my brother to the car, shot me one last snooty look, and drove off. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, letting things go was never something my mother would do. A few days later, I started receiving messages from people I knew and some relatives online. Many were furious with me, while others just had questions about what happened. I tried checking Facebook, but couldn't see what they were saying because my brother and mom had blocked me on their accounts. My girlfriend, however, could still see everything as their profiles were open. We screenshotted everything and printed some of it out. Both of their profiles contained posts calling me a greedy, heartless bastard who stole the house meant to be my brother's inheritance by paying off the lawyer who handled Dad's will, a complete and utter lie. I called my lawyer, who was also my father's lawyer, and a family friend, and sent him copies of all the screenshots from Facebook, as well as the video my girlfriend had recorded the day my mother demanded my house. My lawyer suggested just sending a formal cease and desist letter, but I wanted to take it further. He sent them a letter via express mail that required a signature to confirm they received it. The same day the letter was delivered, my mother called, absolutely furious. I told her that if she and my brother didn't retract all the false posts they made about me and tell the truth, I'd share everything I had with the whole family, her boss, and upload the videos we recorded online. I also mentioned I would sue her. She called me unreasonable and said she did it for my brother's sake, then went into a full-blown lecture about how my brother still needed my house more than me because he was broke and expecting a baby. I bluntly replied, "I don't care what you think. If you don't take everything back and tell the truth, I'll make sure your career is over." She begrudgingly said, "Fine, you win. Have it your way and keep the damn house," before hanging up. That evening, all the lies disappeared from their profiles, and I was on. My mother gave me a half-hearted apology, saying she overreacted because she thought my brother needed the house more, but admitted that the house was rightfully mine, according to Dad's will, which he had known all along. My brother also apologized, but his words were mostly parroting our mother's reasoning. He claimed he just went along with her ideas and blamed everything on stress and desperation. The replies on both my mother and brother's profiles were filled with fury from those who had believed their lies. I got messages from people who now realized they had been misled, but it also showed me who was truly on their side, since they had believed the nonsense so quickly. Most of those people were from my mother's side of the family, while no one from my father's side believed her at all. My brother and his girlfriend ended up moving in with our mother to save money, but she put them in the basement to keep her Airbnb running. My brother took to social media, complaining about how they couldn't live upstairs, which I couldn't help but laugh at. This whole situation inspired me to get cameras for my house inside and out. Dad was old-fashioned and didn't care about cameras or even TV, only enjoying his scotch, cigarettes, and books. But now, as the homeowner, I realized cameras were a necessary upgrade. We kept the cameras secret from everyone except our close friends, and things got more complicated when my brother swore to me that his girlfriend had always been faithful, even though there were doubts. I suggested they get a DNA test for peace of mind. He quickly agreed, and I arranged to pay for it with the condition that he wouldn't ask me for more favors or money after this. However, things quickly spiraled when he started having doubts, wondering if his girlfriend had cheated or tried to trap him into fatherhood, so she wouldn't have to work any harder than she already did. Sadly, I suspected he might be right. How could you even have a baby with that racial slur? I thought you were dating him yourself. I tried to make this family normal, but you wouldn't listen to me like a good son should, and now all my plans are ruined. You're all just a bunch of racial slurs. Meanwhile, my brother was on his knees in the grass, holding his head and crying, saying, I can't. My mother actually grabbed my brother by the arm, poised to swing at him, but one sharp look from me froze her in place. She stiffly lowered her arm, let out a loud growl, and stormed back into her house. My brother has started acting more mature than I ever thought he would. He stopped calling our mother Mummy, and now talks about her the way I do. He came to me recently and admitted he had been a spoiled mooch, saying he was going to work harder to be a good father and provider for his child. His therapist is really doing wonders, and the level of regret my brother feels is intense. He's actually becoming more responsible. As for my future, she's hung out with me a few times since coming to work for me. She speaks fluent Spanish, which has helped with a few customers, and she's proving to be a great employee. Now for my mother. She actually drove up to my house in broad daylight when no one was home and smashed several of my front windows with large rocks from a metal bucket. The rocks had racial slurs written on them, but thanks to the cameras I installed, she was caught on film. The rest of the family and my brother shared their version of the story on Facebook, which destroyed my mother's already poor image among her side of the family. Now, she's hardly speaking to any of them. My mother was never good at planning. She had this idea that if my brother had a house to himself, he wouldn't need the baby's mother around and could survive on a part-time job, but I shattered that dream. She didn't lose her job or anything, but the control she tried to maintain over everyone is crumbling. I've known this kind of person since I was 14. Back then, I stood up to her when she tried to spank me, and she threw a tantrum, because neither I nor my father would allow it anymore. She's always been someone who can't seem to live without controlling others, but now she has no one left to boss around. In the end, my mother got what she deserved, but I still wonder if it's really over, or if she's going to try something again. I've got a mole on the inside, though one of my cousins from my mother's side of the family. She's one of the few who still visits my mother. But after everything that's happened, I doubt my mother will try to cause any more trouble. It's been quite a ride dealing with her narcissism, but I'm thankful it's over. I appreciate all of you for your support and understanding throughout this ordeal. I hope my mother has learned her lesson and will stay out of my way. With that, I want to wish the best for my girlfriend, my brother, their baby,